Welcome to the Living All In podcast. I appreciate you joining for what I hope you find are some thought-provoking discussions of life, leadership, character, perseverance, and living intentionally in every aspect of life. I'm a business owner, executive coach, and a strategist for business and government leaders across the U.S. More than any of that, though, I'm a husband, a friend, an adventurer, and a believer in what others at times say is impossible. A guy who is out to live life to its fullest and who simply doesn't believe in half measures. I hope you find something in each episode that you can apply to your life, that it inspires you to live life with purpose, with intention, and appreciation for the gift of every day, moment, and opportunity. That from the little to the big, the daily grind to the life-changing opportunities, you wake up every day committed to living all in. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Living Life All In. On recent shows, we talked about defining our why, the vision for the life you want, that is what drives you. We talked on the last show about building a roadmap for that life. We started by getting really clear about every aspect of the life you want to have in 10 to 15 years. From the career or job you want, the relationships with family and friends and what your day-to-day life looks like, to where you live, how you vacation, your hobbies, your involvement with your community, and every aspect of your health, fitness, and well-being. On that episode, I talked through the process I use in my own life and with clients to backwards map from where you want to be in 10 years to where that means you need to be in each domain of your life in 5 years and in 1 to 2 years. Now, part of that process is being honest with yourself, and if you have a partner, ensuring you're aligned about the compromises, the sacrifices, and the work it's going to take in every domain of your life, your career, your relationships, your personal growth, and your health. I hope you also walked away with the clear message that it can't just be about the destination. It can't be all about the sacrifice to get somewhere in 10 to 15 years. Yeah, you're going to work a little harder up front, on every front, to lay the foundation for the future. But, and I can't emphasize this enough, you have to live a life you enjoy every day on the path to where you're going. My clients and friends often hear me say, live a life that will be the stories told for generations. And while I'm far from perfect, that's my North Star. Every morning I wake up to the gift of another day and part of a promise I made to never waste that gift. On most shows, I tell listeners that the show will stand on its own, even if the context would be clearer if you listen to the previous shows. This one, I'm going to be even more direct. If you haven't listened to the last 2 episodes, getting clear on your why and turning your why into your roadmap, I'm going to urge you to pause this show. Go listen to those and then come back to this. You will get a ton more out of this show if you've listened to those and done at least some of the activities and homework I talk about in those shows. Okay then, if you're still with me, hopefully you've listened to the previous shows and you've got your notebook in front of you with your notes getting super detailed about the life you want and each milestone measurement along the way. That roadmap we talked through and you spent time writing up, maybe with a partner or maybe by yourself. It should list every detail of every aspect of the life you want. It should have specific, measurable milestones on everything from income and time with family to fitness, health, hobbies, and the place you call home along the journey. What it doesn't have yet is the plan of action, the steps you're going to take to create that life, to hold yourself accountable for taking action every week, and the system we're going to use to ensure you're making consistent progress in every domain of your life while also making time to enjoy life along the journey. I'm pretty fired up about today's show because this really is my favorite part for myself and for clients. The part where we take that picture of the life we dream of and we start truly bringing it to life. Every single day, we're going to take a step forward. The getting ready to get ready part, that's over. Don't get me wrong. I am a dreamer, and I absolutely love seeing people take a vague idea of what they think might make them happy and turning it into that high-def image of exactly what they want. There is something truly moving about seeing that light flip when someone goes from imagining to seeing it, to feeling it, to believing they can have it. But ultimately, I'm an operator. I like action. I like having a plan that I'm going to go execute. I like movement, progress, making decisions, and doing whatever it takes to accomplish my mission. I am absolutely alive when I wake up and look at the board and say, okay, today we're going to do A, B, and C. Check. And then at the end of the day or week, doing that self-assessment. A and C complete, B still to be completed and added to tomorrow's tasks, or in doing A and C, B found to be unnecessary, now moving straight to D. That is where we're going to spend our time today. Laying out the plan of action, creating an accountability system for progress and for living. Now is the time when we end the game of endless excuses and we begin a phase where every single day is about taking action. On an earlier episode titled Aligning Life with What Matters Most, I talked through an exercise for identifying 4 categories of things in your life. Number 1, the things that matter most. The things that mean the most to you. They fulfill you, ground you, feed your soul, and make life the amazing ride and adventure that you're choosing to live. Category 2, the things you need to do, where it matters how well you do them. Things like your job and being a decent neighbor, colleague, or member of your community. Third category in that, the day-to-day must-do things that you don't have to get enthused or fired up about, but half-assing has consequences. And doing these little things well can have a compounding and positive effect on other things. And the fourth category we talked about on that episode was the things you've been afraid to do, the things you wonder if you could do, the things you might regret not doing, but you just haven't had the reason, the opportunity, or the confidence to take the leap and do. Or maybe it's that you know you should, but you've had a whole lot of excuses for not doing it yet. If you've been following the show and doing the exercises or making notes somewhere, pull those up. If you hadn't written these things down yet, hit pause for me. Grab a notebook. Rewind 60 seconds and take some time to write down your answer to those 4 categories I just mentioned. There are also worksheets you can use for this on the Living Life All In pages on Instagram and Facebook pages and on livinglifeallin.com. Although today is about making a plan, an accountability system, which will be a lot of new steps, actions, and ideas, we're also going to be talking about those 4 categories of things in life. Some to make sure we make time for them, and others to reassess how much time they get or how we approach them when we do them. If you have your notes from the last show in front of you, or remember the conversation, you'll be ready for this next part. If not, I want you to take whatever time you need to pause throughout the show, to give yourself time to really think about the questions, and most importantly, about the life you want. The roadmap for action can get pretty complex once we get into the weekly or daily tasks. But if we pull up a bit, it all fits into 4 categories, the 4 domains: your income, your relationships, your health and well-being, and your personal growth and happiness. Let's get a little more into each of these to be clear on what we're going to be talking about, including and building a plan around. That first one I mentioned, your income. What does it take financially to live every aspect of the life you've laid out that you want? Look, there really are no right or wrong answers. I'm not here to tell you every person needs to make $500,000, $1 million or more, and that the only acceptable plan is one that gets you there. Maybe you own your home outright. Maybe you have huge savings. Maybe the life you want that fulfills you doesn't cost that much. Now, I will tell you, if you're looking to live hovering around the poverty line because you don't really want much in life, my show, coaching, and approach to life probably isn't going to connect with you on every front, but maybe you'll get something out of the approach to getting what you want in other domains of your life, like your personal growth and your relationships. Speaking of that, category or domain number 2 is your relationships. What are the relationships you want to have, and what does that look like? From your partner, your kids, and extended family, to your close circle of friends, extended network, or the people you know through your hobbies, your community involvement, or your work. Domain number 3, your health and well-being. There really is no way around the simple truth that how healthy you are, physically and mentally, is one of the biggest factors in your ability to do and enjoy a lot of things in life. Whether that's having a healthy relationship with your partner or spouse, or with your friends, or your ability to do anything active, from playing with your kids to getting out to enjoy nature, or just take part in everyday activities. I also strongly believe that your physical health carries over to your mental state of mind and can be a driving factor in your success in every aspect of your life, from your relationship to your career, and that runs both ways. Your mental health will have a direct effect on your physical health, on your energy. Finally, your personal growth and happiness. Yep, this one's a big topic, but I think it's the most overlooked or ignored and one of the most important. I know plenty of people with impressive careers or who were incredibly athletic, but too often those were covering up or distracting from a lot inside them. I'm a big believer that continuously learning, growing, and doing the things that truly light a fire inside you and bring that smile from deep inside are every bit as important as your relationships with others and the kind of success others see, like your career or fitness. No, I'm not here to tell you what the answers, elements, or standards are for any of these. Those are very unique to each person. We're going to make a plan of action for the life you want to live and what things look like for you and that life. But I am going to push you to view that plan through these 4 domains: career or income, relationships, health and well-being, and your personal growth and happiness. We're going to crosswalk each aspect of the life you want into these categories, and we're going to make sure you're addressing every one of them every week as part of your plan of action. Okay, so let's do it. Let's get into the planning. First, we're going to look at 2 things together from your turning your roadmap into your why exercise. Let's look side by side at how you described your life in 5 years and how you described it in 1 to 2 years to be on track for that 5-year life. Looking first at the life you need to be living in 5 years to get to the life you want in 10 years, check in with yourself on things like, what are your expenses? What income will you need to be generating to live that life? How much will you be working? How flexible or secure is that work or job? How much time are you spending on the things you enjoy most in life or with the people you care about? What are you doing to take care of yourself, to take care of those you love? What is the mix of living for the future and living the most of each day? And are you okay with it? Now, flip in your paper or in your mind to what life needs to look like in 1 to 2 years to be on track for the life you described having in 5 years. When you do, recognize and remember that this is where you're going to be putting in the hard work to lay the foundation for the future. You may be working more than you want to be in 5 years, let alone in 10 years. You may have to sacrifice or compromise, whether that's how much you sleep or how much time you get for the hobbies or activities you enjoy. I don't want you to cut these things out entirely, but if part of your plan is to start your own business to get the income and freedom you want, I can tell you firsthand you're going to have to be prepared to put in the long hours to make that happen. If a 2-hour workout every day is important to you, you may have to get up an hour earlier. You may have to live in a smaller house or apartment to save money. Your vacations may be a drive to the coast or the mountains instead of a flight to another country every year. You may have to pass on that night out with friends to make sure you spend some time with your partner. Or you might have to make time for your personal hobby in between work obligations to be able to meet up with friends on the weekend. There are compromises to building the life you want. But notice, every one of these things, from tending to your health to making time for vacations and time with friends or family, is very much part of life still. It's just what that looks like that may evolve over time. So this is where the plan of action begins. To get the life in 5 years that gives you the clear indicators you're on track for the life you want in 10 years, what does life need to look like in 1 to 2 years? Again, what are your expenses in 1 to 2 years if you're on track? Look at the list we put together for your 5-year life. Will your life cost less because you'll have less? Will it cost more because you're investing or saving more? Only you know, because this is your life and your vision. But think about things like, what income will you need to be generating in 1 to 2 years? How much will you be working? What is your plan B, plan C, or D, and your alternate income sources? How much time do you get in 1 to 2 years for the things that drive, inspire, and fulfill you? What are you doing to take care of yourself? To take care of those you love? Again, what is the mix of living life for the future in 1 to 2 years and living life the most of each day? Are you okay with it? Now, let's make the plan to make all of this happen. You're going to need to get super clear about every detail, each step, month by month, and then week by week, about what you need to do, how you're going to consistently take action that gets you there, and how you're going to hold yourself accountable every week. Accountable for doing the work, for constantly reassessing to ensure that work is leading to the outcomes you're working toward, and adjusting when needed. And accountable for making sure doing all of this work doesn't blind you to the absolute need to still be living life every day. If you've followed me for any time, you've heard me say, I measure every day by a simple question with an incredibly high bar. I traded today for 1 day of my life. Was it worth it? That's the accountability system and bar I'm going to ask you to live by. It's what you're going to have to do if you're committed, not just to the idea of the life you describe, but to doing the work to making it real. For our plan of action, we're going to break it down into the 4 categories I mentioned earlier: career or income, relationships, health and well-being, and personal growth and happiness. We'll go through the same process for each of these domains. For each, we're going to build a plan of action based on 5 questions. Number 1, where do I need to be in 12 months? Number 2, Where am I now? Number 3, what is the gap or difference between these two? Number 4, what are the actions I need to take to close that gap? And number 5, what is the first and the next step I need to take? We're first going to answer these questions for the 12-month plan. Then we'll break them down for 6 months, 3 months, and 30 days. Then we're going to take that 30-day action plan and break it into weekly plans with daily tasks. We'll talk through it once, but just as I do with my clients, I'm going to tell you, it's something you need to do every month to be able to stay on track to meet the 1-year milestones. And even within that monthly check-in cycle, every week you need to have an accountability system to make sure you're doing the work that needs to be done, adjusting where necessary, pushing harder if something falls behind or is missed, and raising the bar rather than resting if things get ahead of schedule. On that last part, let me be very clear. There are going to be weeks everything feels like too much or you're falling behind. Just keep going. Reassess, dig deep, go harder, change strategy or tactics, but keep going. And let those weeks be the warning to you when 1 week's tasks get done faster or more easily than expected. Sure, when that happens, take a moment to celebrate, to use the time to really live the day. But don't get complacent. Keep pushing. So, let's start this journey, this plan building and promise you're making to build the life you've been imagining. Up first is career and income. Looking at that 1-year milestone, where do you need to be in your job, your career, or your income in 1 year? Where are you today? What is the gap or difference between those two, whether it's place of employment, the status of business, or the income itself? Is the gap something that is closed by working harder where you are? Is a promotion what will close the gap? A bonus? If so, what specifically does it take to get those? Do you know? If not, how can you find out? Do you need to make a change in employer, industry, or career? Do you need to start your own business to be on track? Solo or with someone else? What would starting that business require? And if you don't know the answer to how to close the gap, what do you need to learn to answer that question? You don't get to just punt it. Who can you talk to? What can you read? Once you've identified the path or paths you need to explore or pursue, what is the first step you need to take? I can't give you the answer here, and you need to spend some serious time answering this instead of just quickly saying something like, well, I need to learn more, or I need to find a better job. I want you to really look at your situation and identify the specific first step. Maybe it's, I need to research the pay at my employer's 5 biggest competitors. Maybe it's, I need to determine if my customers would still hire me if I was out on my own. Maybe it's, I need to consider what other industries or careers I'm qualified for and willing to do and would give me the income and the opportunities I want to build the life I've designed. So once you've gotten that specific, I want you to write down what exactly your first step is. Whether that's calling someone who knows more than you do to have lunch and learn from them, or if it's getting online and doing some research. Now, from here, think of building your plan of action as constructing or cutting a path up a mountain towards the summit. Each time you take a step forward, you get a slightly better view of what's ahead. And each step forward means you need to be ready for the next step. This isn't about taking a step and resting. So we're going to plan 2, 3, 5 moves at a time. If your first step is to research what careers or employers might get you where you want to go. What are you going to do once you know that? Again, this isn't a time to be vague like, well, I'm going to try to get hired there. How? How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? Do you need a new resume? Do you need to write a cover letter? Are you better off applying cold or through a warm introduction by someone you know? We may have just named your next 3 steps. Once you know where you might want to go to work, you'll need to make contact, which means you'll need to research who to contact. If you know someone there or someone who knows someone there, and you need to get the documents together to apply. Are you skilled at updating your resume? Or do you need to tap a friend, a family member, or maybe even an outside service to help you with that? Now, this is an example if you're looking to shift employers or even careers, but the process you follow will be the same, whether that's the path or you're looking to advance at your current job or start your own business. To advance or grow at your current employer, you'll need to know what that process is for promotions, for raises, bonuses, or lateral moves. Starting your own business is a little more complex because you need to handle all of the technical and legal aspects like incorporation, local licensing if it applies, and staying in compliance with any industry standards. And you need to handle the practical side, like getting clients or selling your goods or services. If that's the path for you, you'll also need to consider the financial implications, like startup costs, billing cycles, and how long you personally can afford to go without drawing a paycheck while things get up and going. One of my most recent business ventures is on track to bill a little over $500,000 in its first year, but we didn't receive our first client payment for more than 6 months after we started. So we had to make the appropriate plans to be able to operate without client cash flow for half of a year. I also want to be real about the need to be prepared to respond to what you find, what you learn, or just changing dynamics and facts on the ground. Whether you're angling for a promotion, looking to jump into a new career, start a side hustle to make extra income, or leap into self-employment, I've rarely seen any long-term plan play out exactly as you expect. Don't give up too easily, but do be prepared to improvise, to adapt, and to overcome whatever is thrown at you. Take this process I just described of identifying what path you want to pursue or explore and determining the first step along with the next step after that, and turn it into your first 1-month plan. So let's talk about one of those examples and what that looks like. We're going to set 1-month objectives or outcomes. We are going to achieve and grow actions to take each week to get there. So let's say your plan is to shift employers or careers. We know your first step is to learn about your options. So month 1 outcome might be, I will know what my income potential is in different industries or with different employers, and I will know what it would take for me to be a viable candidate for one of these jobs. It's probably also important to know not only if you're qualified, but how often these jobs have openings. There's really not much point going through this whole process and spending a lot of time applying if nobody is hiring. Sure, you could roll the dice and hope somebody quits or a company suddenly decides to expand, but that's probably a better plan B. So, what have we decided we need to know by the end of month 1, looking at our career or income if you want to shift jobs? Who are the employers that would be a fit for what you want to do and earn? What are the qualifications to get the job that interests you? Which employers are hiring? What is the best way to apply to have the best chance at being interviewed and ultimately hired? So in this case, we have 4 questions to answer, which conveniently fits our 4 weeks. and they are in a pretty logical sequence. You might find there are more questions you need to answer, so you might have a plan of action that looks slightly different. You may have one objective or outcome each week. You may have 2 or 3 tasks. For this situation, take each question and make that your weekly objective. Now, break that down into the tasks you need to do to answer the question. Every situation will be different, but your plan of action is actually pretty simple. Identify what you need to learn, how you're going to learn it, and assign a time slot, a day, or even better yet, a time of day that you're going to do that task. If you don't know how to accomplish the task, include in your task list how you're going to figure that out. Is that internet research, talking to a friend, or whatever is appropriate for you to learn it? But that goes on your task list. Your task list now needs to become 2 things: your weekly guide and your end of day and end of week accountability check. If you assign yourself a task, protect that time. Prioritize it. Don't let these things become optional or blocks on a calendar that you let yourself use instead to add something else that pops up or something that sounds more fun, more instantly gratifying. These are the things you have to do to build the future you want. The little things here are what makes the big things. Treat them that way. The process is the same for each other domain of your life. On future shows, we'll go deep on personal growth, happiness, and relationships. For now, let's do one more quick example of the plan of action, although we won't spend quite as much time because hopefully you're getting the flow. Again, we start by identifying the end state, being honest with ourselves about the current state of things. Name and describe in detail the gap or difference between the end state and the current state. Determine first steps. Take action. Repeat. We'll talk through how this applies to health, which includes nutrition, fitness, and well-being. Although these are each unique components of the same domain, I'm adamant with clients and myself that all 3 have to be independently addressed to maximize any and all of them. Like so much of life, there is no easy path or simple fix when it comes to health. I've seen some of the strongest people destroy their bodies with boxes of processed junk, and I've known elite athletes whose inner turmoil tore them down. Pay attention to all 3 elements of health, and the foundation to conquer every aspect of your life will be exponential and unlimited. But it can't be just one element. You will never realize your body's true potential or achieve peak physical performance until you also get your nutrition right. And still, neither of those really matters unless you also tend to your inner peace and your mental well-being. For now, though, let's start by talking about fitness and nutrition, which are inextricably linked. So is mental well-being, but that's going to take an entire show, and I don't want to try to tackle such a complex and critical issue in just a few minutes. Thinking about fitness from the lens of where you've determined you need to be in 1 year to be on track to living the life you want in 5 and in 10 years. Are you on track today? Maybe your goal is simply to be able to be active enough in 10 years to be able to play with your kids or grandkids. Maybe you want to hike the Pacific Trail, compete in 5K runs, or surf without getting winded paddling out. Fitness is one of those domains in life that the longer you ignore it, the harder it will be. Nothing is ever impossible, but going from running 2 miles to running 3.2 miles to compete a 5K, or losing 5 to 10 pounds is a lot easier than losing 50, 75, or 100 pounds, or going from getting winded walking around the block to hiking 5 miles to see a waterfall you can't drive to. I've known and worked with people on every point of these fitness journeys. And the one thing in common among every successful person has been their commitment, their unwavering decision to make it happen. The one thing in common among all who fail is that they were there when it was easy, but as soon as it became inconvenient, hard, or involved some discomfort, their commitment suddenly faded. The fitness portion of your plan of action is no different than the career or income. Want to run faster? Further? Want to lift more? Lose some stubborn belly fat? Or just become more fit to be able to enjoy day-to-day life and an active lifestyle? Set the one-year objective. If you want to lose 50 pounds, that is the objective. Want to run a 5K in under 25 minutes? That's now our objective. So let's break those down into 6-month, 3-month, and 30-day milestones. 50 pounds is going to be straightforward math. It may sound like a lot, but in 6 months, 25 pounds. 3 months, 12.5 pounds. 30 days, just over 4 pounds. Now it's starting to sound doable. This gets even easier to break down weekly because we know that losing 1 pound requires burning 3,500 calories more than you consume. You can pretty easily find a BMR calculator online, which will tell you how many calories you burn just by existing, given your age, gender, weight, and your activity level. Let's say it's 2,000 calories per day. That means 14,000 calories per week. To lose 4 pounds in 30 days, you need to lose 1 pound per week, which requires burning 3,500 calories more than you consume. So at a 14,000 weekly BMR, you need to either eat a total of 3,500 calories less than the 14,000 your body naturally burns, which would be 11,500 calories for the week, or about 1,640 per day. Or you need to burn an extra 3,500 calories through walking or some form of exercise. Any combination of these will get the job done. But to lose 50 pounds in a year, you need to burn 3,500 calories more every week than you eat. There are 50 different ways to do this, and 100 details we can go into about healthy eating that I discuss with clients, but it really is a choose-your-own adventure. If you want to lose 50 pounds in 12 months, decide what you're going to do every week to burn that extra 3,500 calories per week. Maybe it's eating 300 calories less than that 2,000 your BMR calculated 7 days of the week, plus some form of exercise that burns an additional 280 calories 5 days per week. For most people, a 45 to 60 minute steady paced walk is going to get that job done. If this is your plan, make the same weekly schedule you did for career, with time blocked, daily tasks, and weekly accountability check-ins. The nutrition side is a little more complex, but it can still be broken down the same. Let's say that within a year, you want to cut out 75% of the fried food, junk food, fast food, or processed junk in your diet. Where are you now? Are you eating that stuff every day? Every meal? Break it down into manageable, incremental changes that will get you there. I do believe in some radical changes to jolt the system, but on nutritional changes, my experience is most clients fall back into bad habits if the change is too sudden and they feel like they are dieting instead of changing lifestyle. If you're among the super disciplined, make the big change. I'm with you. Decide that as of tomorrow, no more takeout or processed food. If you're like most people, let's measure, scale, and make progressive changes. So if you or your family currently eats takeout 3 times a week, let's look at getting that to once per week by 6 months on our way to making it the rare thing by the end of the year. I can tell you personally, I cut out fast food, and now even when I think that a drive-through burger is what I want and I give into that once or twice a year, it ends up not only disappointing, my stomach tends to reject it and not feel so great. But if we want to get there over a year and we're going down to once a week by 6 months, just backwards map that and start with change in month 1. Maybe the goal is by the end of month 1, you're down to 2 times per week. Or maybe it's twice per week, but one of those is something not fried. Maybe every other week, it's only 1 visit to McDonald's, or you shift to Chipotle and get the healthier bowl option. Same approach with any aspect. Want to shift to more fish, healthier chicken, or grass-fed beef? Find a place to buy directly from the rancher or the fish market. Decide where you want to be in a year and break it down to your monthly changes. Maybe month 1 is adding fresh fish once per week or trying a vegetarian option every other week. Maybe it's ditching the Costco steak and ground beef for some from a local rancher or butcher. Maybe you're just adding more vegetables each day, or you're cutting back on the processed junk you snack on throughout the day. One of my coaches once told me, shop around the outer walls and aisles of the store. If it was grown, raised, or harvested, and that's what you can buy, grab it. If it's in a box and has more ingredients than the name of it, pass it. It's a bit extreme, I know, but it will also wake you up to what you're putting into your body. This show is not about telling you how to eat, though. We'll cover nutrition in depth on an upcoming episode with some guests. Today, I just want you to think about where you want your fitness and nutrition to be in a year to be on the path to the life you want, and to make a plan today, to start taking action today to change your habits, to hold yourself accountable, and to get to that healthier place. I do want you to take time to be thoughtful about the mental health component of your overall health. That is every bit as important to this domain as nutrition and fitness. Take the time to do an honest assessment of where you are and where you want to be. Write down what things are weighing on you or keeping you from being truly at peace, confident, and living your best, most authentic life. Are there unresolved traumas you need to work through, address, or let go of? Is there a loss you've experienced and never quite fully processed or moved beyond? Depression, keeping you in a funk, or just some self-doubt and limiting beliefs holding you back? Look, for this mental health piece, I'm going to push you, but only you can answer whether you're prepared, able, and willing to do the work to get to a better place by yourself, or if you need outside help. Maybe that's working with a professional, or maybe it's just opening yourself up to some tough, possibly even painful conversations to work through things with someone you trust. What I am confident of for each person listening is that improving your nutrition and fitness will play a powerful role in helping you address the mental health and how you feel about yourself. No, I'm not going to tell you that some more healthy eating and 50 more burpees will end your depression, but I will tell you that doing those things will make you feel better, stronger, more confident, and more able to face anything that you need to work through. On this component, I'm going to encourage you to write down what's weighing on you. Be real with yourself about the root cause, how it plays out and spills over into other aspects of your life, and what are the paths to improvement. If it's finding a professional to talk to, name that. Write it down. If it's giving yourself the space to break down and let it out, write that down and make time for it. If it's cutting things or people out of your life, you've got to be willing to name that and write it down as a first step. Once you've put this on paper, you need to include action on this in your monthly objectives and your weekly task list and your accountability, just like you do for your career or other components of your health. I can't tell you on a single show what that looks like, but follow the model we're discussing for each domain of life. with tasks, deadlines, and a regular reassessment. If you need more help, whether from a coach like me, a friend, or a professional, reach out for the support. It will make a world of difference. Okay. So we've talked about a process for turning the roadmap of where you want to be in your career and your health into 1 year, monthly, and weekly plans of action. Things evolve. And any plan you make this month is going to change the landscape for next month. So go through this every month for career and for health. It's going to be the same process for relationships and for personal growth and happiness. But those do get a little more complex and a little more nuanced. As with the others, we're going to start by defining where you want to be in a year based on the picture you've painted of where you're going in 5 and 10 years. And you're going to get honest with yourself about where things stand now. So you can do that gap analysis, naming what needs to change and how much it needs to change. But relationships and happiness or personal growth are not quite as easy as your income, your weight, or running a 5K, where it's pretty obvious how to measure things. Measuring happiness or the quality of relationships is going to require even more honesty with yourself. It's going to require some quiet time to reflect on where things have been, where they are, and what needs to change, how things need to change. It will probably also require some very real conversations with people in your life and the ability to likely hear some tough truths. With my clients, these are some of the most difficult, emotional, but ultimately powerful conversations I have the privilege of helping shape, and in some cases facilitate. For the relationship domain, I'd encourage you to start by listing the 5 to 7 most important relationships in your life. It's okay, and in fact, it's helpful if some on the list are groups instead of individuals, like my kids, or my extended family, my work colleagues, or my camping group. For me, one of those is my sky family, the people I skydive with. There are some who really are like family to me. But even if they're traveling or we miss each other at the drop zone, the whole community is a family to me, and spending time with them recharges me. If you've got a partner, they get their own slot on this list, to be very clear, because we're going to be particularly intentional here. If there are 1 or 2 others, like a best friend, a business partner, or someone with whom the relationship is particularly meaningful, include them on this list. For these relationships, I want you to write each name on the top of its own sheet of paper. First, I want you to just do a brain dump about who this person or this group is to you and why they made this top relationships list. Once you're done with that, I want you to make 2 lists. One of all the good things that come from the relationship for you and hopefully for them. The second list is of the things that would make it even better. Maybe that's one of you changing something you do, how you say things, or it's saying something that needs to be said. Maybe it's just about the time you get together and you or them making that time, prioritizing it. If they're on this list, they're obviously an important part of your life. What do you want that relationship to look like in a year? Is it about maintaining what you have, finding even more ways to strengthen it? Or is there a need to get past something that has happened? You can probably guess what I'm going to suggest next. We're going to commit to taking action. Unlike income or health, though, I'm not going to suggest we find the halfway better point. Instead, we're going to make these relationships part of our plan of action. Every week, I'm going to strongly suggest you put on your to-do list at least 3 actions to support these relationships. If you have a partner, they get on there every week. So your tally is now 4, and the same thing for kids. Don't rush through this, please. Be thoughtful. What is going to strengthen these relationships to be the kind of relationships you want? Is it a specific conversation you want to have? If so, put on your weekly to-do list, reaching out to find time, and your own time after it to process your thoughts. If it's as simple as, I need to have a meal or go for a run with this person more often, then make that quantifiable, measurable, and do it. Say, I'm going to get together with this person once a month with no agenda. Put on your calendar the first week of every month to reach out and make that plan. Whether it's a mentor, a close friend, or a colleague, I can also tell you the follow-up is often just as meaningful for the other person. Imagine grabbing lunch with a friend and 2 later you get a text, an email, or a card in the mail thanking you for prioritizing the relationship, reflecting on something you shared, and acknowledging the guidance or feedback you shared. It's a little thing that can really help transform a friendship into a lifelong connection of mutual appreciation, support, and trust. So, you know what I'm going to say. Put that action of following up on your schedule. For relationships, your plan of action should look something like step number 1. Identify the most important relationships to you. You can revisit this monthly or quarterly as you need. Step 2. Define what you need to do to strengthen or build the relationship you want to have. Step 3. Take action. That action should include its own 3 steps. Reach out, spend the time, follow up. Do this every month for all of the people on your list. For some, like a partner or a kid, they should be on your plan of action every week. Anyone else who made the top 5 to 7 should be on your plan at least every month. I'm not saying nobody else gets your time, but if you're serious about the people on your list, they get prioritized. They get your time before others do. Do this for the next 90 days, and every one of those people is going to not just see, but feel the value you put on that relationship. The effort, the time you're investing in the relationships, and your commitment to saying what's in your heart or what you've been holding back, and just the very act of being intentional about the time with these people who matter to you. Those small actions are going to compound quickly. I'm also going to be real with you. It's possible 1 or 2 are going to turn out to either not be as important as you thought, or they may not put that value on them. That's okay. I'm not saying give up easily, but I am saying be honest about what you want or need, what someone else is ready to give, and how you both prioritize things. For those relationships that you prioritize, and they may meet you in that same place, some pretty amazing shifts are going to happen in just those first 90 days. By 6 months, you're probably going to have the kind of connections that are tough to find as adults. And after a year, you're going to have a tribe of people you will know you can always turn to and will know the same about you. It doesn't take a lot, but it does take consistently making the effort and holding yourself accountable to do so. Now, the final domain for your plan of action, your personal growth and happiness. This one is such a broad and far-reaching domain that there are going to be a few shows about it. With my clients, while one check-in every week hits on the other 3 domains of life, this gets its own dedicated conversation. Upfront to start the work, and every month to address the full scope of what's included. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to pull up or think about those things we identified, talking about aligning life with what matters most, particularly the things that matter most to you and the things you've been holding back on saying, afraid to do, or just always finding excuses for. For now, what I'd like you to do is identify 3 to 5 things that you'd put on the top of your list in a few areas. The things that make you happy. The personal learning and growth that interests you. And your spirituality. Things that make you happy. This is in addition to the other domains we've discussed, like career, relationships, or health. A few may intersect, like traveling with your spouse or partner, competing in some sporting or athletic events, or being involved in a professional association. They should also include some things totally outside of what you named earlier, though. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's quality time in nature or with your dog. For me, I include things like skydiving, cooking, open water paddling, playing with my dogs, and traveling to new tropical places with my wife. Next area, your personal learning and growth. I believe strongly that we are at our best by constantly learning and growing. That might mean learning a new language or skill, but it doesn't have to be that tangible or specific. Maybe it's learning more about a subject, whether that's history, a foreign culture, cooking, or urban gardening. Maybe it's learning something new like ballroom dancing, gardening, or woodworking. Maybe it's just reading or listening to podcasts to get a new perspective on life, current events, or something you've always been curious about. Next area, your spirituality. And I offer this with the broadest possible definition. Maybe you belong to a church, a temple, or a mosque. Maybe you have some belief in a higher being, but organized religion isn't your thing. Maybe you don't fit neatly into any particular box, but there are places you go. The mountains, the ocean, a sunrise looking out over the open plains, and you just feel connected to something bigger than yourself. Whatever it is, I know that for those of us who connect to something, making time for it is more than just something to fill a time slot. It's the opportunity to fill the soul. So on each of these components of this domain, what makes you happy, your personal learning or growth, and your spirituality, I want you to do exactly as we did with relationships. Define where you want to be. Be real about where you are, and be specific in describing the gap between them. Your hobbies or things that make you happy is probably the easiest to put on a to-do list. For example, I want to be a highly skilled as a wingsuit pilot, and I want to go on vacation every year to a tropical beach with my wife. The latter is straightforward. She and I have to plan the trip. We do also have to talk about where we're going, how we're going to manage our business while we're gone, and some other details. I can put all of those things on my calendar to do. The same is actually true for wingsuiting. There's continued learning I need to do, but really it's about me prioritizing that. I need to decide that at least every other week I'm going to make time to train, to go to the drop zone, and instead of doing a bunch of zoo dive jumps with friends, I'm going to train flying my wingsuit. To get better, I need to work with a coach, so I need to budget funds and time for that. I want you to go through that same process of the things that make you happy and your hobbies and what you're going to do every week and every month. Personal learning and growth. Name where you want to be, where you are, the gap between them, or just the new things you want to add to your knowledge, and take the actions to make it happen. Think back to when we discussed learning about the earning potential of a new career and whether you could get a job with a particular employer. Follow that same process. Want to learn a language? Research the different approaches. In-person and online classes, web or app-based learning, immersion learning in another country, and decide which best fits with your life. But first, you have to decide what you want to do, put it on your schedule every week with measurable milestones and actions. Now, spirituality may not come with the measurements, but you can absolutely prioritize the time. Go explore different churches or houses of worship if that's your thing. If you already have one, set whatever goals feel right. Attending service once a month or every week, plus involvement with activities outside of service. Maybe it's as simple as finding time to sit quietly in a place in nature that grounds you, where you have time to be with your thoughts. Whether you call it meditation, personal reflection, or just clearing your head. The point is, this one is personal, but that doesn't mean it can't fit on a weekly task list or be something you hold yourself accountable for doing. In fact, it has to be both. Finally, I want you to pull up that list from aligning life to what matters most. If you remember that episode or have your notes, you'll recall it was about first sorting tasks into 4 categories. 2 of them are things you have to do. They're on your calendar no matter what. The other 2 are about living a full life with no regrets. One list is of the things that matter most to you, that fill your soul and energize you. Another list is of the things you've been afraid to do or say, or that you keep telling yourself you'll do someday. If you don't have these lists, go back and listen to episode 3 and do the exercises there. Once you have these lists, I want you to make them part of your weekly planning and accountability. I've talked consistently about needing to enjoy the life you have while you're building the life you want. This is where that gets baked into your daily and weekly life. Look at that list of the things that matter most to you and make sure they're on your calendar every week without fail. Whether they're on there every day and which ones depends on what they are, but they better be there at least a few times each week. I also believe that wondering what if is far worse than falling short or just discovering something isn't for you. So something off that I've been putting it off list needs to go on your calendar. Maybe it's one big thing every month, and every week or 2 there are some other things you've been putting off doing or saying. Whatever the frequency is, these 2 categories of things have absolutely got to be part of your schedule and your accountability if we're going to build a truly fulfilling life. On an upcoming show, we'll get more into personal accountability. For now, I want you to hold yourself accountable for doing 3 things. Number 1, once each month, go through the big picture assessment of where you are in the 4 key domains of life we've discussed, to check where you are, what progress you're making toward where you want to be, and planning out what you need to do. Number 2, at the start of every week, go through your action plan in each of the 4 life domains: career, relationships, health, and personal growth and happiness. For every one of these, put the tasks on your daily calendar for the coming week. And number 3, at the end of each week, set aside time to reflect on the week and ask yourself honestly if you did the things you said you would, and when you did, if you were all in. We've covered a lot today. In fact, we've talked in little over an hour about the stuff that is usually 3, 4, or 5 sessions with my clients to work through. And each of those require homework before and after. I do hope you'll save or download this episode and go back through it with your notebook to write down some of the activities, and that then you'll set aside time to go through each piece of the plan of action and give it the kind of serious thought and time it deserves. We're not just making lists here. We're taking stock of where you are versus where you want to be. And more importantly, we're making a plan to get you from point A to the life you want. None of it is easy. Putting to words the state of things, the distance between where you are and where you want to be, and telling yourself you can do it. In fact, if some of this doesn't scare the hell out of you, you're probably not setting your sights high enough. But all of this does get easier when you break it down into simple daily tasks. Leaving your job to go work for your dream employer, that may sound intimidating. Researching what that employer pays and having lunch with a friend's brother who works there, yeah, not so difficult. Turning around a strained relationship, sounds tough. Reaching out to tell someone you haven't seen in too long that you'd like to grab coffee or go for a walk, maybe it puts a lump in your throat. But I promise, it's not going to hurt. And it just might be the first step to something incredible. For now, I hope you'll look at your calendar for the next 2 weeks and block off 4 30-minute blocks of time. 1 for each domain of your life. Your career, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth and happiness. Use each of those blocks to do the assessment and make the plan of action we talked through. In just a few weeks, you'll have the tools to start taking action to transform every aspect of your life. On an upcoming episode, we'll get deep into accountability. Both the paper or technical systems for tracking and keeping yourself accountable, and the mental tools and exercises to do the same. On other shows coming up, we're going to talk a lot about leadership at work, at home, and in your community. Living a life that fulfills you and serves as both a model and an inspiration for others. We'll talk about why character matters and why in every aspect of life, the little things really are the big things. I'm also going to be going deep into the strategies, tactics, and details of different elements of business and career growth or change, lifestyle, personal growth, and change management. And we'll be joined by guests with in-depth expertise in areas like fitness, nutrition, and finance, including some of the people I look to as mentors, role models, and coaches. Thank you for listening today. I do know it's time out of your day that could be spent on any one of a dozen other topics or hundreds of other podcasts. I'm truly honored you took the time to listen to this show, and I hope you found something you can use or think about. Before you sign off, please do subscribe or follow so you don't miss any upcoming episodes and you get alerts right when they're released. If you're on social media, give the show a follow. Living Life All In on Instagram and Living Life All In Podcast on Facebook. You can also follow me directly at Barrick Abramson on Insta and Facebook. And you can keep up with the show, the Living Life All In blog, and my executive coaching work at www.livinglifeallin.com. I'd love your feedback, your reviews, and your help getting word out about the show. You can leave your review on the podcasting network where you're listening right now, and I would be truly appreciative of any help sharing links to the show on social media. You can always drop me a message directly on any of the socials I mentioned, and I'd love your thoughts about this show or ideas for future shows or guests. From my heart, thank you for giving the show a listen. As you go about your day, I'd encourage you to do your own internal assessment. Is this something I want to prioritize or make time for? Is it something I have to do? Is this one of those things I really should be doing all in? Am I? Until next time, live with purpose, live with intention, and live life all in.